Howdy folks, Todd here with Great Escape Farms. Today I am standing in front of 5 different methods that I have used to keep deer away from certain plants. So today we're going to talk about different ways to keep deer away from plants. We're also going to talk about a few things that do not work. So I have tried the ones behind me over the course of the last 10 years and they have worked very well. At least some of them have worked for some situations, some better than others, but we're going to talk about all that in this video. So stand by, let me turn the camera around and let's take a look. Okay, the first method is basically putting a fence around your plant itself and then staking that fence up. It could be on bamboo itself like this, it could be on a plastic stake, or it could be on what we call a T-post over here. And what we're trying to do is prevent deer from not only eating this plant and trampling this plant, but also doing the rub and the rut and everything else in the fall. So a little plant like this would just be completely decimated by deer, and with this fence here it would completely protect it and keep the deer away. Now any plants or leaves that grow out through the fence here, they would go ahead and nibble on that and browse that if it's a type of plant that they like. Even if it's one they don't like, they'd at least nibble on it a little to figure out that they don't like it. Next up is the tree tube, and we will walk down and see that. The tree tube is something used by commercial growers. It is right here and it allows UV light through, and there's actually a plant in here, and it will prevent deer from browsing on it, and it will prevent deer from doing the rub and the rut and everything else because this is flexible. It wouldn't do them any good, and they may try it once but then they'll walk away. This would actually be again tied to some kind of a stick with a wire tie or something. I do have a stick inside just to hold it up for show and tell here, but this one I think is only 3 foot tall. You'd want one that's 4 foot or taller so that when the greenery comes through the top and the canopy opens up, that it's above the browse level for the deer. Next up, and again, this is just for show and tell because this plant itself is only about 3.5 foot tall, and they would browse this. But if the tree was taller and you wanted to protect from the rub and the rut, then you could use the spiral tree protection here. I had a 7 foot tall weeping willow. It was only probably 1.5 inches, 2 inches around in diameter. And the deer came and they were rubbing their velvet off on it, and they completely took the cambium off all the way around, and I ended up losing that tree. So this would have prevented that. So even though they couldn't get to the top and browse it, they still managed to kill it because they took all the bark off around it. The fourth method is right here, and this is for large areas of plants, and I did this around my food forest, and this was my only method of keeping the deer out for 6 years, and it worked great. I only ever had one deer get in there and he got out quick. So let me explain this real quick. First off, I have the T-posts here, and all the way around the perimeter, again, this is just show and tell, so I don't have it all the way around, but all the way around the perimeter, I would have a 2 foot high fence, and that kept my dogs and the groundhogs out. So even though groundhogs can dig and they could get under it if they wanted to, usually it's more work, there's other stuff around, so I never had a groundhog go under mine, again, in 6 years, and I did have them in the yard. They just found other places to go, they just didn't mess with this. So that kept the little four-legged critters out. Next up is the deer, the bigger four-legged critters. So what I have here is electric fence string, and from a distance you can barely even see this, and I would go ahead and charge this either with a battery operated charge controller or an electric charge controller I put in the wall. Now this is only 4 foot high, and deer can easily jump 4 foot. However, deer have very poor depth perception, and if you look inside here, there's another one in between, and if this was a bigger area, I would actually zigzag and have a couple of them in between here. And the idea is to just get them to question exactly what's going on in there and basically not want to go in and mess with it. Now, the reason they would not want to mess with it is you need to teach them to respect the string. This will not permanently hurt the deer. It will just kind of make them respect the string. So don't think I'm being cruel here, but you take this string and you go ahead and you put a little aluminum foil on it and you put a little peanut butter on it. Deer love peanut butter, so they will come over and they will lick it. And these strings do not electrocute people or things, animals, whatever. They put out a pulse of high voltage electricity, which it'll zap you. I've been zapped myself, and hey, I'm still here making videos. But they certainly make you respect the string. And when this thing is charged, I respected it after I got zapped. And it teaches the deer to. Once they respect the string, they look in there and they can't quite tell how far back that is. And even though they could easily jump it, they're like, I am not messing with this, and they go find lunch somewhere else. So this worked great around close, let's see, I was slightly over 300 plants in my food forest, and just zigged and zagged, and it kept the deer out for 6 years until I went to my final method. And my final method is right here. It is an 8-foot high deer fence. So at my lowest point, I am 8 foot. In some cases, I'm 9 and 10 foot here. But I have had this up for 2.5 years, and I have never one time since this went up had a deer in the yard. So I have several links I'll put in the show notes about me putting this together, comparing the commercial product I bought here as well as one I built and did homemade around the backside there. But I think, again, going off memory here from a few years ago, I think it was $2,100 for 4.5 acres of putting this up. And the $2,100 was just from 4 foot up to 8 foot. I already had the first 4 foot done. So just to extend a 4 foot fence to an 8 foot fence. And that does not include the cost of the gates here. The gates are rather expensive as well to get an 8 foot high operational gate, and we have a couple of those around. But this has been absolutely wonderful. I run an orchard, I run a garden that produces, and we sell at farmers market, and I run a nursery company where we sell perennial plants and shrubs and trees, and this is absolute heaven for a deer, and they are unable to get in. So a couple of the things that we've tried that have not worked. One of the things is people talk about putting mint around plants, and the deer don't eat mint. They're right about that, but it does not stop them from walking right through the mint and going over and eating whatever is around. So we have found that to not work around here. Let me jump back to this fence here too. This fence is 8 foot tall. We have found that 6 foot and 7 foot fences in this particular area of West Virginia do not work. They will easily jump over that. I have yet to find one that will jump over 8 foot here. In other parts of the country, there's different deer, and if you end up with a larger deer, stronger or more desperate than they are around here, they may be able to get over 8 foot. But here in West Virginia where I'm at, they have not come over an 8 foot fence. One of the other things that I have been told that works, and I imagine it does, is to have a dog that's outside all the time, and then the dog will chase the deer off. I know even my little rat terriers, they're short, but they will certainly chase after a deer. However, they are inside dogs. They are not outside dogs, so as soon as they come in middle of the night when the deer are out, they would come in if we didn't have this fence here. Another thing that we've heard is fox urine. So we have purchased commercially online some fox urine and put that around in the yard and done various different smells and stuff, and that also did not work. That did not deter. We've also had groundhog issues. Did not deter the groundhog, did not deter the deer. So a few of the things to maybe save a little money on there. One other thing a neighbor is doing here is they have wigs, and they put wigs all around the yard, and they don't have any fence up or anything else. They have a nice looking garden. I need to talk to them and get more detail on it, but just something to look into there. If wigs work, I would think maybe the scarecrows, and I can't see any of them where I'm at. We put scarecrows up. You can see one right there. We put those up to deter hawks. Definitely doesn't deter hawks. They about landed on the shoulders there of our scarecrow. Don't know if that would affect deer or not. So that's, again, something else you would have to research elsewhere. But the 5 methods I talked about over here, they definitely work for us. I mentioned a couple that I know definitely do not, and gave you a couple things to research on your own. So thank you very much for tuning in, and have a great day.